Delegate from Norfolk, Delegate Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This session, we have begun the work to protect reproductive rights in our Constitution. And I'd like to highlight something that's in the very first sentence of HJ1, our constitutional amendment, and that's the right to make and carry out decisions related to fertility care. Mr. Speaker, that means something special to the city of Norfolk. That's because Norfolk helped to showcase to the world the promise of fertility treatments, like in vitro fertilization, or more simply, IVF. In 1981, just a few days after Christmas, and against all odds, America's first IVF baby, named Elizabeth Carr, was born at Eastern Virginia Medical School, which was then at Norfolk General Hospital. Baby Elizabeth, who weighed in at 5 pounds, 12 ounces, was described as, quote, not only beautiful, but perfectly normal. The thing is, Mr. Speaker, everything, literally everything about that moment was unlikely. For starters, the IVF clinic in Norfolk had only been open for about a year. The science was new and developing. The clinic was led by 2 retired doctors from Johns Hopkins, Howard and Georgiana Jones, both of whom faced relentless criticism. There were protests, there were dire predictions about their work, which was viewed by some as dangerous science fiction. But these doctors persisted. And their 13th patient, which actually turned out to be a lucky number in this case, was a teacher named Judy Carr. Now, when Judy showed up in Norfolk, she had already had 3 prior ectopic pregnancies, one of which very nearly took her life. And she had been told she would never have any children at all. To even get the IVF treatment, Judy and her husband Roger had to make several trips over 500 miles to get to Norfolk from Massachusetts, where they lived, where IVF was actually illegal at the time. But the treatment was a success, Mr. Speaker. Judy became pregnant. And during the final month of her pregnancy, the Carr family lived in Norfolk and took some pretty extraordinary steps to protect their privacy and avoid the naysayers, including staying in an apartment under an assumed name and even having guards stand in the hallway of the hospital when baby Elizabeth was finally born. All these years later, IVF has helped millions around the world, even as new threats emerge, like the Alabama Supreme Court case from last year that jeopardized access to this care. Elizabeth, who is now in her 40s, spoke out forcefully against that case. After all, she's here only because her parents had the right to make and carry out decisions related to fertility care, just like HJ1 promises for everyone in Virginia. Mr. Speaker, if we're willing to listen, that little bit of Norfolk history that I've just shared has a lot to tell us. People deserve to feel like they can shape their own destiny. And a key part of that, a fundamental part of that, is controlling your own reproductive health care. Even when it's difficult, even when it's controversial, even when it's IVF, birth control, mifepristone, a doula, or later on, affordable child care. All things we have fought for this session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.